The Premier League is the coldest workplace in the world. You can deliver glory, rewrite history, and carry an entire club on your back. And the moment things dip, they'll shove you out the door so fast your medals don't even have time to gather dust. This league has no loyalty. It treats managers like disposable coffee cups. Use, celebrate, throw away, and no one learned that lesson harder than these two men. José Mourinho, a man who won the league like it was a casual Sunday hobby, only to get treated like he forgot how football works overnight. Claudio Ranieri, the man who pulled off the greatest miracle in sports history and then got rewarded with a thanks but pack your stuff. Two champions, two icons, two managers who touched the top and were drop-kicked off the mountain by the very clubs they made legendary. If football had a most disrespectful moments Hall of Fame, these sackings would be behind bulletproof glass. Because this isn't just failure, this is betrayal at championship level. José Mourinho's return to Chelsea in 2013 had been met with mixed emotions. The special one was back, a man who had conquered Europe and England before, yet Chelsea fans knew his reputation. Brilliant, yes, but volatile. By the 2014-15 season, Mourinho was ready to remind the Premier League why he was considered one of the greatest managers of his generation, and boy, did he do it. Chelsea's season began like a storm. From the first whistle, Mourinho's tactics were perfect, disciplined, ruthless, unbreakable. The defense was a fortress, with John Terry still the iron anchor and Branislav Ivanovic providing defensive steel on the right. Nemanja Matic arrived in January, and suddenly Chelsea's midfield became untouchable. They controlled games with surgical precision, breaking opponents down with counterattacks and fluid passing. Up front, Diego Costa was everything Mourinho had dreamed of. A nightmare for defenders. A predator who scored goals when it mattered most. Eden Hazard, finally free from constant injury interruptions, was dazzling, gliding past defenders with the confidence of a man possessed. The team had a killer instinct. They didn't just win matches, they annihilated opposition. By the halfway point of the season, Chelsea was steamrolling the league. They were unbeaten at Stamford Bridge and had collected points almost effortlessly on the road. Victories against Arsenal, Manchester United, and Liverpool cemented their dominance. Mourinho's famous mind games in the press, once thought arrogant, now served a purpose. They kept the opponents off balance, distracted, and anxious. February arrived, and Chelsea's lead at the top seemed untouchable. The title was theirs to lose, and they weren't going to lose it. There were moments of genius. Costa's brace against Manchester City in April, Hazard's solo masterclass against Tottenham, and a late penalty save from Thibaut Courtois that preserved a crucial win against Everton. The Stamford Bridge crowd adored their manager. Chants of Mourinho, Mourinho echoed after every match. And then, in May 2015, it happened. Chelsea lifted the Premier League trophy, finishing 8 points clear of Manchester City. The celebrations were massive. Mourinho's second title in his second spell at Chelsea cemented him as one of the club's greatest ever managers. He had achieved what he promised, and he did it his way. Ruthless, uncompromising, and utterly dominant. The world thought this was the start of a dynasty. Mourinho, the tactician who never let glory slip, would build another empire. But football, as it often does, had other plans. The 2015-16 season started quietly, almost innocuously. Chelsea still had their star players, and expectations were high, but cracks began appearing almost immediately. Early draws against Crystal Palace and Stoke hinted that the team was no longer invincible. Diego Costa struggled to find form. Hazard wasn't running at defenders with the same menace, and the defensive solidity that had carried them to glory seemed less reliable. Mourinho's press conferences changed tone. Once confident and mocking of rivals, he now sounded defensive. Rumors of tension inside the dressing room began to swirl. Key players were reportedly unhappy with training methods and tactics. Mourinho, a man who demanded absolute respect, was now facing subtle rebellion. September and October were particularly grim. Chelsea lost to Swansea, a shock that sent tremors through Stamford Bridge. Fans began murmuring. Pundits questioned the special one's genius. Mourinho tried to calm the situation with a 4-0 win against Aston Villa, but it was too little too late. The once untouchable fortress had cracks that opponents were beginning to exploit. By November, the situation had spiraled. A humiliating 5-3 defeat to league leaders, Liverpool exposed defensive frailties. Diego Costa's goals had dried up, and Hazard was being tightly marked out of games. Reports suggested that the squad was divided, some still loyal, some questioning tactics, and some openly frustrated. Mourinho's press conferences became sharper, sniping at the media and indirectly at his own players. The mood inside Chelsea had shifted from celebration to tension, from confidence to fear. Final blow came in December. Losses to Liverpool, Southampton, and an embarrassing draw to Leicester left Chelsea sitting perilously close to the relegation zone. Fans and pundits couldn't believe it. The champions were collapsing in real time. Mourinho, who had just been the master of the league, was now portrayed as a man losing control of his own empire. On December 17th, 2015, Chelsea Football Club made one of the most shocking decisions in Premier League history. They sacked José Mourinho. 7 months after lifting the Premier League trophy, the man who had delivered glory was fired. If José Mourinho's fall was shocking, Claudio Ranieri's story was heartbreaking, almost cruel in its irony. In the 2015-16 season, Leicester City weren't supposed to win the Premier League. Nobody thought they would. Not pundits, not bookies, not even some of the players themselves. Odds of 5,000 to 1 made their victory the most impossible title in football history, and yet, against all logic, against every expectation, Leicester did it. Ranieri's approach was deceptively simple. He didn't need a superstar-heavy squad or billions in the bank. He had belief, discipline, unity, and a dressing room that operated more like a family than a football team. Jamie Vardy was lightning incarnate, Mahrez a magician with the ball, N'Golo Kanté a tireless engine, and Wes Morgan and Robert Hu a rock-solid defensive spine. Each player fit perfectly into Ranieri's master plan: counterattack with deadly precision, exploit mistakes ruthlessly, and never lose faith. The season itself was a symphony of the improbable. Early wins against Newcastle and West Brom set the tone. Then came victories against Arsenal, Spurs, and Manchester United, each one cementing the idea that this wasn't luck. This was magic. By Christmas, Leicester were leading the league. Fans could barely believe it. Players smiled, danced, and laughed. And Ranieri, the humble, gentle tactician, became a hero overnight. But the story wasn't just about wins, it was about moments. Jamie Vardy scoring 11 goals in 11 games, breaking records, his runs leaving defenders helpless. Mahrez creating moments of pure genius from nothing. Kanté running 12 kilometers a game like a man possessed. And every time the opposition thought they had an answer, Leicester had another trick up their sleeve. It was cinematic perfection, a real-life fairy tale on grass. By April, the title was almost theirs to lose. Matches against Manchester United and Spurs were nerve-wracking, yet Leicester handled them with composure that belied their underdog status. When they finally clinched the league, the world erupted. Leicester City had done the impossible. They had achieved the unimaginable. Ranieri, once a quiet, understated figure, became the symbol of hope for dreamers everywhere. And then came the next season. The 2016-17 campaign started quietly, almost peacefully, but the cracks were already forming. Other clubs studied Leicester's style. Teams figured out their counterattacks. Players like N'Golo Kanté left for Chelsea, and the squad suddenly felt lighter, weaker. Confidence wavered. Early draws against Arsenal and Liverpool were a warning, but fans still hoped it was a blip. Then came shocking defeats. Leicester losing to Bournemouth, a humiliating 3-1 loss to Hull City, and a string of draws that left the champions dangerously close to the relegation zone. Ranieri tried to maintain belief. His press conferences remained calm, his words measured, but behind the scenes, tension simmered. The locker room was reportedly divided. Some players struggled under the pressure of expectation. Others looked demoralized by early season failures. The team that had thrived on unity and belief now seemed fragile. Confidence, which had powered them to a historic title, was now cracking. By December, the situation was critical. Leicester were in 14th place, and fans were growing anxious. Ranieri's gentle approach, which had inspired miracles, now seemed ill-suited to motivate a squad under pressure. Media pundits whispered about tactical rigidity. Critics questioned whether Leicester's fairy tale could survive a single bad season. And tragically, the answer was no. On February 23, 2017, Leicester City shocked the football world in one of the cruelest acts in modern Premier League history. They sacked Claudio Ranieri. The man who had delivered the most impossible title in the history of the league was now unemployed. 9 months after living a dream that football fans would tell their grandchildren about, Ranieri was out. The fairy tale had ended not on a high, but with a handshake and a cardboard box.